Hey everybody, I just want to share a short little video about an older guy's perspective about the state of BMX or kind of getting back into the BMX hobby. If you enjoyed it like I did in the early 80s and you find yourself in midlife and you kind of don't want to lose your ability to do those types of things anymore and you kind of have this midlife crisis. That was me about 10 years ago. Um, and when I was turning 40, I got back on a skateboard. I got back on a bike because I was like, if I don't try, I'm going to lose these things that I spent so much time as a kid doing. So I'm sure some of you can relate, and that's where I'm coming from. Um, so when I first started in the early 80s, I had a Murray, and I had that heavy clunker thing for many years before I finally got an MCS Magnum, which was a BMX racing company that was based here in Florida. And it was decked out with got it at an old bike shop, and the guy had decked it out with Pyramid trick parts. And Pyramid, if you remember, it was like kind of the knockoff company back then that knocked off a lot of the freestyle designs from the big manufacturers, and they would repop them and they would or copy them, and they would sell the these small bike shops. And so the guy had redone it in like a purple and pink. And back then, guys, we sported purple and pink, like proudly. And it was decked out with those accessories with pegs and a Mott's pod and everything. You could spin the bars, you could do endos. And I was on cloud nine with that bike for many years and really enjoyed it. And, like many of you, got rid of it, not thinking. And, you still wish you had it. And, but for most of my early adult life, I wasn't involved with BMX, didn't really know what was going on in the scene too much. And I rode, 26-inch bikes, mountain bikes, beach cruisers, things like that. And just never, kind of had left it in the past. So I turned 40, want to get back into BMX, and I'm wondering, all right, so I'm looking around and I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm bigger and I'm older and I probably need to do a big BMX. I need to do a 26 or I need a 24 or something like that. I tried both of them. I had a GT Performer that they came out with back then. They repopped the Performer as a 26-inch, got that bike. And I got to tell you, I was really disappointed in it. To me, it was like, you might as well get a mountain bike or you might as well get a cruiser. It just didn't have that BMX feel to it that I remembered. And so then I did a DK General Lee, I think, and that was a 24. And again, it was it just didn't feel right for me. So I started exploring the new street style BMX bikes and was paying attention to the street riding. And obviously I'm too old to be doing crazy tricks and things, but I love bunny hopping, doing curbs, small ramps, things like that. And I had a blast with the street style. And especially I like to exercise. I like to, I'm the type of person that, is serious about keeping up with your cardio health and everything. So to me, not sitting on a seat and cranking on that thing was the best workout. And so many times at that time I lived in town and I would bike everywhere I need to go, run all my errands on that thing. And the town had gotten so overgrown that it was almost faster for me to do that than get in a car and sit in traffic and run my errands. So I beat those bikes up on the curbs and everything else and had a blast with them. And fast forward another 10 years, I retired out to the country and I now live on an old a limestone dirt road, and I'm not really seeing the streets anymore. And I was finding myself riding my beach cruiser that I had put mountain bike dirt tires on, and that was my workout. And I was kind of missing my two street bikes I still have are just hanging in the shop, and I'm like, I'm just not getting the use out of these anymore. And so I started thinking about racing, the racing bikes, and I have a big, huge area in the back now. Got almost 5 acres here. And I was like, man, it would be great to put a little clay pump track back there, and do get a race bike. I've never really had a proper race bike. So I was searching around, and I started paying attention to this Huffy HX Pro. I think it came out in about 21, and all of a sudden, we know Mongoose had made some pretty. They had made some pretty competitive bikes. They weren't really in store. You couldn't go to Walmart and buy them, but Walmart.com would have them. And I would, back when I was doing street bikes, I'd purchase those and start with them and modify them to my liking. And but Huffy really hadn't been in the scene much. Huffy was they make their Cranbook cruisers and their little kids bikes and things like that. But apparently somebody along the way said, hey, we need to get competitive again. And they came up with this HX Comp and HX Pro racing model. Didn't really have anything for street tricks or anything like that, but they came up with these race bikes. And I was looking at them. And I think when it debuted, this one was like $270, and the HX Comp was like $200. And the only difference, well, there are some other differences, but the main difference is the Comp is high tin steel. This is full aluminum alloy. And so I just kind of kept my eye on it for the past few years. And all of a sudden I was on Walmart.com the other day and see that it's the exact same price as the Comp. The Comp and the Pro are both $198 or $199. And I was just like, that's unreal for an all aluminum frame BMX race bike. I got to try it. And I had seen a few videos on it. There isn't a whole lot out there on social media about it. And I mean, there's Huffy's product kind of release video and a couple other guys reviewing it. One guy I saw did a bunch of modifications to it. But after that, after the initial release, I mean, it seems to have just kind of died off. It's not really, there hasn't been much talk of it. And so I don't know if it's the case that it's just sort of sitting in those warehouses now and they're just lowering the price and just getting them out, getting them sold. So, before I kind of go into the bike, I also want to get into the aspect of the hobby is if you're reaching back into this hobby again and you're looking at these prices of these of these antique 80s BMX bikes, it's absolutely ridiculous what's happened. And as also a car guy and being in the classic car scene, I've seen this happen to so many hobbies, to so many guys that get to be about our age. They have more money, or more than likely, I should say, more credit than what's good for them, and tend to blow things completely out of the water. And unfortunately, I think that's what's happened here, because I mean, I love my hobbies and stuff, but I'll be damned if I'm going to spend $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 on a BMX bike. I mean, it's not happening. And I've managed to have my fun getting into it a little more than 10 years ago. I did pick up some 80s bikes and built them to my liking and all of that, and had some fun on them again. But I got to tell you, if you're buying one of those bikes and you're looking for one of those old school 80s bikes, then you think you're going to hop on that thing and love it. I'm just saying, from my own personal experience, the newer geometries, the newer manufacturing on these bikes, particularly the street style BMX bikes, they are so much nicer to ride. They just feel so much better. The dimensions, I mean, they've stretched out the top tubes on just about all BMX bikes now. We used to ride like 16, 17-inch top tubes. I mean, we're talking small. That's why we had laid back seat posts and things like that to stretch it out a little bit so we have more room. But now the new geometries of these bikes are such that taller, bigger guys can ride them more comfortably. And that's just where I'm coming from on that. And the other thing I'm going to quickly touch on is cycling in general, to me, is one of those hobbies that has so much snobbery in it that you can't even imagine. And, I mean, I'll see it in the comments to this video. I know I will. Chinese, crap, wall goose, all this stuff, all this hate that gets thrown on discount store bikes and more budget-minded bikes is just, it's just crazy to me. And I'll tell you that I have kept my neck out in cycling for, even when I wasn't riding BMX, I was riding other types of bikes. And I'll tell you, in the last 15, 20 years, the discount bikes have really done a lot. Those manufacturers have done a lot to catch up with bike store branded bikes. I mean, you can go to any major sporting goods store now and just kind of witness that. After you've been to a bike shop, go there and you're like, wow, it's several $100s cheaper and it's got a lot of same features on it. Now, where they fall short, discount store bikes versus bike shop bikes. At a bike shop, and I'm not speaking for all bike shops, and honestly, I kind of veer on the side of caution of saying this, that you're going to get good customer service at a bike shop, because there haven't been too many that I get good customer service at that I've ever seen. I'm sure they're out there, but you're going to get better service and you're going to get better assembly. But as far as parts go, I mean, there are some differences on certain parts where they cheap out on the big stuff, on the big box brands. They will cheap out on certain parts. But when you're talking about frames and forks and things like that, they have really, really caught up. Very close to bike shop quality bikes. It's the assembly that's always very poor. And if you don't have the bike assembled correctly, you're going to have problems right off the bat. So get to know working on bikes, or find yourself a good, bike shop mechanic. And if you're going to go with a less expensive big box brand bike or something like that, learn how to go through it, assemble it, and make it good, make it right. And it'll last. I mean, I'm 6 foot, I'm over 200 some odd pounds. And I'm telling you, both of the street bikes that I was riding started out as Mongoose. One was a 900 and one was a 540. The 900 is a full 4130 chromoly frame, 40 millimeter rear axle. It has a lot of the heavy duty stuff on it that you find on much more expensive bikes. But with that said, I modified it. I rebuilt the bottom bracket, put better bearings in it, things like that. And it held up. It held up very well for my weight. I do break chains, especially if I'm trying to do, like, I was trying to learn how to manual, and that was a disaster. But I'm putting a lot of pressure on a chain when I try manual. And I did break some chains here and there. And I still, I always recommend, like, upgrading your chain. If you're a heavier person and you're getting on one of these things, that's definitely a go-to thing. So, well, I'll stop talking about that and let's kind of get into the Huffy a little bit. And there's not too much more I can say that's probably not been said already about this bike, but I'm going to pick it up here and show you. And it's a 21. Let me see if I can reverse the camera on the phone here. Can I? Nope. It's about a 21-inch top tube on this bike. I didn't do a real accurate measurement while the stem was apart and stuff. I thought about it after the fact. So I measured it on the side and it gets very close to a 21-inch top tube. So if you're a taller rider, I'm, like I said, I'm 6 foot. I'm now too fat, but I'm like 210, 215, and I'm comfortable on this bike. The frame, it is super light. This is the lightest bike I've ever owned. Literally, you can take this thing and just stretch your arm over your head and it just weighs nothing. It's just absolutely incredibly light. So I was kind of floored about that. And to that end, the acceleration on it is fantastic. This is race gearing. It's not the street style gearing. So, you're going to have great acceleration with it. It does come with a chain tensioner, which is really cool. I was playing around with that. I've actually never had that on any of the bikes I've owned. 3-piece crank system. Here are the shortcomings. These pedals are terrible. Plastic pedals, they're just going to fall. But now they're light. And if you're a kid, I'd say they're fine. But if you're like me, those are going to tear up real quick. and those are easy enough to replace. These WD branded tires or whatever they are, it's got like a WD on it. I've had these on several low end bikes, and they wear out super fast. They're super cheap. So I'm going to put a set of dirt tires on this because, like I said, I'm riding on a lime rock dirt road. But honestly, these things they didn't do too bad out there. I've already I did about a 3 mile ride on it yesterday. And the seat, I'm only sitting here and there for a few seconds, and I opted not to slam it. I'm actually getting too old for that shit. So I did sit on it, from time to time for just a few seconds and up, and it's very tolerable for short periods of time. Bars, I would say the bars are somewhere around a 9-inch rise. So again, it's built for a taller teenage kid, to say the least. And has V brakes, and they were just about adjusted correctly when I got it put together. I didn't have to do too much to them. They seemed to be okay. And the other thing I'll say about these lower level bikes, besides the incredible money savings, double wall rims, by the way, nice double wall rims on them. And it looks like there's even a heavy duty tube in here. I don't know. I haven't pulled it apart yet to put the new tires on, but it's definitely shrouded. It's like a metal shroud on the valve stem, which is kind of cool. The grips aren't that great, changing those. I'm sorry about the camera here, but I'm now I can't reverse it, so I can't see what I'm filming. The other thing I will say quickly about these lower end bikes is that, yes, you're not going to get very good customer service at your big box store when you purchase them. Like I said, I usually do Walmart.com. You get a much larger selection. I'm going to put the bike together myself anyway, so I don't mind getting it partially disassembled. But yeah, you're not going to get a whole lot of customer service at a big box store. I mean, that's obvious. And, but you don't have any problem taking them back if you have a problem. You don't get that kind of return policy at a bike shop. And the other thing you don't get, if you have any kind of problem, and I've experienced this with Pacific, which owns Mongoose, and with Huffy, if you have any kind of problem with these bikes, when you get them and you're putting them together, you call that 1-800 number and you talk to a live person immediately. Every time I've ever used those numbers, somebody answers the phone in this country, and you tell them, hey, my wheel's a little out of round or something like that, which we all know that's fixable, tune spokes. You can adjust spokes, but if your wheel isn't right, call them up. They will send you new wheels, no questions asked whatsoever. You don't pay for shipping, nothing. Sometimes they don't even ask for the serial number. I would just literally call them, tell them what model number, the model number I was working on, and they would send the parts. I've done that many times, even with some bikes I found on the side of the road that were, years old. I would call and I'd say, look, I know this isn't out of warranty, but do you have this and that part? And I think one time I bought a set of wheels for a Mongoose for like $30 or $40, all in, shipping, everything. You can't do that on eBay. So there's a lot of pros in messing with this so-called lower end stuff. Because I've had bike store stuff. I've bought bikes from bike shops. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't that impressed. So, I know I'll get a lot of shade and a lot of comments about this, but I'm happy with this bike. I'm excited to ride it, and just letting you guys know, there's ways to dip your feet into hobbies and not break the bank. So I hope this helps anybody out there that's around my age that's wanting to screw around with BMX bikes again. Don't be afraid to go for the modern stuff. Put your own, I'm going to put dirt knobbies on this and, give it some old school touches. And I'll have a great bike that I love to ride. I'm not afraid to ride it. And I'm having fun. And didn't break the bank. I'd probably, by the time I modify this bike, I'd be surprised if I had $300 in it all in. So there you go. That's my perspective. I appreciate you guys listening, and hopefully we'll have some more videos soon. Thank you.